Hello everyone, first news update for 10th of April. Now it's about 3 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news that Russian media and public pay attention to during the day. And hopefully you will find this episode informative and interesting, although I'm gonna start with the announcements, which is that earlier today I published a new episode of Heritage program on my Patreon and Boosty pages, and this episode, which is about Moscow State University, main building of it, this episode was completely made by my older daughter, Nitsa, who studies on Faculty of Journalism here in Moscow, first year, and I was positively impressed with this work. We can listen to a little bit of this video.
Hello, my name is Nitsa and this is the program Heritage. Today I will tell you about Moscow State University. One of the most striking examples of Stalinist architecture is the main building of Moscow State University on Vorobyovo Gory, which was built in 1948 till 1953 under the direction of Lev Rudnev by a team of architects. In addition to Rudnev, it included Sergei Chernyshev, Pavel Abrosimov, and Alexander Khryakov. Just in case, let me remind you that the building is one of Stalin's 235 meters pyramidal skyscrapers with outstretched wings, located in the center of the bend of the Moskva River on Vorobyovo Gory. The history of Moscow State University begins several centuries ago. Lomonosov and Shuvalov founded this educational institution back in 1755.
Okay, rest of the video on my Patreon and Boosty pages, and if you are interested and are not a member of our community, please consider to join. A link is under this video in the description box and in a pinned comment, and I have a lot of extra content, by the way, on my Patreon and Boosty pages, so hopefully you will find it interesting, and at the same time you will support my work so that I be able to continue making updates. And also another announcement is that yesterday I introduced a new program to YouTube and Rumble channels, which is news of the day. It's gonna be short videos that are focused on one particular topic. Yesterday this topic was tariffs, and I don't know if I make one today, but I will try to do these programs on a regular basis. Hopefully it will help this project to develop a little better. And so yes, that's being said, let's go through some news now. And first of all, this report from TASS news agency that air defense systems on duty intercepted 42 drones over the Russian regions that were launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky with assistance of NATO member states. I give you some precise information on that. 13 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 12 over the Kaluga region, 7 over the Kursk region, 4 over the territories of Belgorod region and Crimea, 1 drone over the territory of Oryol region, and also 1 drone over the Moscow region. And I saw this morning some reports on Telegram channels that towards Moscow, Kiev regime launched a helicopter type of drone, which is something new. I guess enemies of Russia in UK, France, and US are not wasting time by coming up with more and more means to strike deep into Russian territory, and they will pay heavy price for these crimes. They will come. For the other, RT is also reporting that Kyiv regime once again targeted the TurkStream pipeline, obviously with the assistance of NATO. So the Ukrainian military has launched multiple drone attacks overnight, and this is yesterday's report, by the way. So the Ukrainian military has launched multiple drone attacks overnight targeting the Russian gas pumping station, which supplies fuel to Southern Europe via the TurkStream pipeline, Defense Ministry of Russia reported. On Wednesday, the Russian military announced that it intercepted 8 Ukrainian drones targeting the energy facility near the town of Korenovsk in the southern Krasnodar region. The attack on Tuesday night was detected by defense and caused no damage, as all aircraft were successfully intercepted, the report said. So Russian air defense systems did intercept all the drones that were targeting this energy facility, but information itself should be very much concern for Turkey, not just for Russia, but Turkey and a number of European states that are receiving gas through TurkStream pipeline. I guess Ankara and there are some other capitals among NATO member states have to have some talks, not just with the Kiev regime, but first of all with London, because I'm 100% convinced these attacks are orchestrated by terrorist regime in United Kingdom and the criminal royal family of the United Kingdom, which is basically plays crucial role in this among psychopaths that we call globalists, right? Let's see if Turkey will react on that. I did not see any news on that for now. Maybe they will just ignore it and okay. If they don't want TurkStream pipeline and if they no longer dreaming about becoming an energy hub, then okay, let them let Brits and their terrorists from so-called Ukraine continue attacking this pipeline. One day they might actually succeed and destroy it, or damage so much so that pipeline will be out of order for a while. I don't think Russia will struggle to find a buyer for gas elsewhere. That's news agency. And by the way, on this topic, I think if TurkStream pipeline will stop operating and if Russia will stop supplying anything basically to EU member states or NATO member states, I think significant number of society here in Russia, significant part of it, will be quite happy, because many citizens here find it immoral that Russia continues to supply with energy and other goods countries that are either directly involved in hostility against us, like France, for example, Spain, and others, either are part of these blocks, anti-Russian blocks like NATO or the EU. So trust me, if TurkStream pipeline will be destroyed one day by terrorist regime of UK or the Ukraine, many people here in Russia not gonna lost sleep over that, that's for sure. Anyways, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Zhuravka settlement in the Sumy region, liberated from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. And I reported about this progress of the Russian armed forces in Sumy direction several times before, but Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation just now confirms that it is the case that the Russian armed forces liberated settlement of Zhuravka, and reports are coming in that Russian armed forces intensifying offensive operations in Sumy and Kharkov region directions, which is good stuff, of course. TASS news agency is also reporting that Kiev regime lost about 230 military personnel in the Kursk region during the previous 24 hours. Significant losses, of course. Although clearing operation in that borderline strip is in its final stage now, and I guess before end of this week, entire territory will be cleared from enemy forces, and then Russian troops will move on other side of the border to liberate more and more territories in the Sumy region. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that during these clearing operations in the Kursk region, foreign mercenaries, significant number of foreign mercenaries were neutralized. And for example, according to this report, Polish and English-speaking mercenaries were found among Ukrainian armed forces militants in a Guevo settlement, which is already liberated by Russian armed forces. No information how many of these foreign mercenaries were neutralized or killed in Gueva and surrounding areas, but on radio, of course, Russian militaries are tracking radio communication of the enemy, and it's not that difficult to understand on which language they are talking. So there are Polish mercenaries and British mercenaries, maybe members of their special forces from these two hostile countries. That's a possibility. And once this conflict will end, I guess we will learn how many troops from special forces or otherwise these enemies of the Russia, Poland, UK, France, US, and the rest lose during this conflict. I guess number is going to be in thousands, definitely in hundreds. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that more than 10,000 bodies of Ukrainian armed forces soldiers were evacuated from Kursk region. These are killed military personnel of the Kiev regime. Among them, most likely, were foreign mercenaries too that were left on the battlefield by Kiev regime's forces while they were running away. So Russian servicemen have begun evacuating the bodies of Ukrainian soldiers from their border areas of the Kursk region. As reported by security agencies, the death toll is in the tens of thousands. Death toll is in tens of thousands, and tens of thousands of this killed personnel was left in the Kursk region. Kiev regime did not even try to evacuate these bodies and to transfer them to their families. And that's what Kiev regime usually does, by the way. They just don't care. And all these tens of thousands of troops will be designated as missing by Kiev regime, so that they would not pay compensations for the family members of these killed militants that should not ever cross the Russian border, but it's just too late for them now. Also interesting news that while Kiev regime is losing tens of thousands of troops on monthly basis on all the sectors of the front line, Ukraine's top militaries are demanding more and more people to be forcefully mobilized. So Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky has said that Kiev must mobilize 30,000 soldiers every month to sustain resistance against the Russian army. He also highlighted the growing disparity between the military capabilities of the two countries. So this number, by the way, that gives you approximate more or less good understanding of the losses that Kiev regime is suffering on the battlefield. If they are acknowledging that they need at least 30,000 troops, then most likely they are losing on the battlefield much more. And according to reports from Russian sources, on daily basis, Kiev regime is losing 1,500 to 2,000 military personnel, time to time even higher than that. And while this all this is happening, Zelensky is trying desperately to hold on to power, and his assistant chief aide Yermak made a statement and answered the question if there will be elections this summer in Kiev-controlled territory, and the answer is no. No voting this summer. It's nonsense to plan elections during the active combat, said Chief Aide Yermak. First we win the war, then we hold the votes. That's what this delusional mass murderer and the terrorist, a bitch of their MI6 said. You tell me, dear friends, how out of touch with reality these psychopaths really are, that they are still dreaming about winning in this proxy war, man. Unbelievable. Also interesting news that Beijing rejects Zelensky's claim about Chinese citizens that are fighting along Russian troops. So Beijing has dismissed claims by Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky that significant number of Chinese nationals are fighting alongside Russian forces against Kiev. On Tuesday, Zelensky shared a brief video featuring an individual who he claimed was a Chinese citizen captured during the conflict. He alleged that the two such individuals are in Ukraine custody, and that significantly more are currently serving in Russian army. Responding on Wednesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Yan branded the claims groundless, reiterating that Beijing consistently advises its citizens against participating in foreign armed conflicts in any capacity. China's stance on the Ukrainian crisis is clear and unambiguous, and it has been widely acknowledged by the international community, a spokesperson added there. And so, yes, Zelensky tried to, increase noise around the Ukrainian crisis by claiming now that, well, Chinese are fighting us. Maybe he hopes that, US, while here China will significantly increase their military and financial support. And Zelensky more cares about finances, right? He wants some more billions, by the way. And that's why they are now pushing this crazy narrative that, well, many Chinese citizens are fighting them. Okay, I mean, Chinese citizens can actually join the Russian army if they want to have Russian citizenship, or if they want to just fight against the fascists, right? And I personally have no issue with that. I hope hundreds of thousands of Chinese citizens will decide that they want to become Russian citizens and join Russian army. Why not, really? Especially if they have some experience, military experience in special forces or something like that, so that they will be, really, they will make an impact on the battlefield. But in any ways, well, this is Chinese response, and I think true number of Chinese nationals in Russian armed forces are not really high, maybe a few dozen, and that's about it. And it is good that at least Zelensky did not claim that Chinese armed forces are fighting alongside Russian troops, as he and other psychopaths in the West, in US, for example, claimed about North Korean troops that nobody sees, right? I reminded you, friends, that this topic of North Korean troops was one that Biden's administration used for justification of long-range strikes deep into Russian territory. And yet again, in these times when almost everything is watched by drones, not even a single video was published with these so-called North Korean troops. Not even a single video. And the Western propaganda was trying to push this narrative about North Koreans while picturing Russian citizens from Far East that have some Asian look, but they are Russian citizens. They are not North Korean regular troops, but tell this to those ill-educated or ill-informed people in the West that think all Russians look like Indo-Europeans. No, it's not the case. Russia is a very diverse and rich country, multicultural, multi-ethnic country, and this is the strength of Russia, right? So let's continue, by the way. I guess Zelensky's regime soon, and its NATO backers soon will come up with another craziness. They might claim that aliens are fighting alongside Russian troops. That will be interesting. RT is reporting that Russia and US conduct a new prisoner swap. So Russia and US have conducted another prisoner swap in Abu Dhabi. This is United Arab Emirates. The Wall Street Journal has reported, citing CIA officials, Moscow reportedly released Ksenia Karelina, a US-Russian dual national, jailed over the donations to a charity that supports the Ukrainian military, while Washington freed Artur Petrov, a German-Russian citizen, arrested for allegedly exporting sensitive microelectronics. Karelina's lawyer confirmed her release to RIA Novosti. So, okay, US received its citizen, and Russia will receive Russian citizen. Although both these individuals had dual citizenship, but their loyalty are in different places. This Ksenia, or what is her name, clearly is an anti-Russian element, and Artur Petrov is pro-Russian. That's different between them. RIA Novosti is reporting also that Russia and US discussed a significant part of their agenda at the talks in Istanbul. Today, there is a second round of negotiations between Russian delegation and US delegation in Turkey. And that's what we have for now, that Russian and American delegations at the talks in Istanbul have already discussed significant part of the agenda. An informed source told RIA Novosti, we have reached the middle of the negotiations and discussed a significant part of the agenda. This source said, he specified that the negotiations would last for 4 to 5 hours in total and would end at 14 or 1500 hours Moscow time. So most likely these negotiations has already ended, and later on today probably we will learn some more on that. And of course I will share additional information in next updates. But I do not expect some breakthrough to be reached, because I'm in general skeptical about these talks between Russia and US, especially before US leadership will acknowledges that they lost this proxy war against Russia, and until US leadership will agree on concessions, right? And it's not just me that says US and collective West in general lost this proxy war against Russia. US journalist Tucker Carlson, for example, is on the same page on this matter with me. So American policymakers are too arrogant to acknowledge that they have lost the war with Russia over Ukraine. US journalist Tucker Carlson has said Russian officials perceive the Ukraine conflict as a NATO proxy war, notion that same Western politicians, including US Secretary of the State Marco Rubio and former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, have openly agreed with. In an interview with Alex Jones published on Wednesday, Carlson accused those perpetrating to hostilities of ignoring that Russia has emerged victorious. So we just lost the war with Russia. The former Fox News host declared the US was running that war, the US military, the Pentagon, State Department, CIA, running the war against Russia. It was never about Ukraine. Carlson expressed concern that nobody will say that out loud, that we are overstating our power. He linked the US to a divorced 60-year-old man attempting to woo a 25-year-old woman, obvious to how absurd and humiliating he appears. So, well, Tucker Carlson has a point for sure. US lost this proxy war, and sooner US leadership will acknowledge this and agrees on concessions before Russia, then better, because longer this conflict continues, weaker and weaker collective West is in general, and the US in particular, in all the ways, in all possible ways. And there seems like many people in US understands this, but not decision makers, at least for now. TASS News Agency, meanwhile, is reporting that US to make decision on military presence in Europe, taking in account contacts with Russia, United States, has not yet worked out a decision on their levels of further American military presence in Europe. It will be prepared, including taking into account the results of the negotiations between Moscow and Washington. This was stated by US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth following his visit to Panama. And yet again, I mean, all US has to do, US leadership, political leadership, and whatever forces are behind the current administration, they have to acknowledge that they lost this proxy war. They have to agree on concessions because they did harm Russia, and their concessions have to be made. And this agreement not necessarily have to be public. I mean, agreement might be reached behind the closed doors so that the US leadership will save the face, kind of, right? But they have to agree. They lost this proxy war. They have to agree on concessions. And then relationships between the countries may improve a bit, maybe even reach a working level. But when it comes to U.S. troop deployment in Europe, let's be real here. I mean, we don't really care if U.S. has 10, 20, 50, or 100,000 troops in Europe. I mean, we just simply don't care about it. So if Washington thinks that this is some sort of leverage over Russia, and they're gonna speculate on this matter of their troops being in Europe, then they are mistaken, because take a look at the Ukrainian crisis, by the way. Hundreds of thousands of troops are engaged in this conflict, millions of troops actually, right? And if anybody in the West thinks that they have capabilities to fully engaged in this war directly, and if they think they have power to change the tide, they are mistaken. At any given point, NATO member states are hardly capable of deploying even 300,000 troops, in my personal opinion. On paper, they might have several million troops combined, like US, other NATO member states. On paper, they probably have like 4 or 5 million troops. Maybe I did not count how many troops they have officially, but number is approximately there, 3 to 5 million. But in reality, maximum 3 to 500,000 troops can be deployed in a more or less short time frame, and therefore, and what 3 to 500,000 troops gonna do, by the way, in the conventional warfare against Russia? Not much, isn't it? Because Kiev regime's forces are actually much more capable than these NATO troops will ever be, due to experience that they gain in this 3-year war, right? And Russia is still decimating these quite experienced troops of the Kiev regime. And NATO troops, I mean, NATO troops gonna be like a snack in a breakfast, for the breakfast for Russian troops. They will demolish them in a couple of months' time. Nothing to be said about unconventional warfare. And of course, if NATO will engage in wider war with Russia directly, then it is 1,000% guaranteed that nuclear weapons gonna be deployed, and that will be the end of everything. And in that case, numbers of the troops don't really matter, because deployment of nuclear weapons and full-scale nuclear exchange are gonna end humanity. That's it, right? So Hexat is mistaken big time if he thinks that while speculating about numbers of US troops in Europe, Washington may put some pressure on Russia. I mean, we just don't care, man. You may deploy entire your army in Europe, we just don't care, right? TASS news agency is reporting that EU spends 144 billion euros on Ukraine since 2022, including 49.6 billion on weapons shipments. The European Union has already spent 144 billion euros on Ukraine either since the beginning of 2022, including 49.6 billion euros on arms and supplies. The European Commission said in a statement, as the EU-Ukraine Association Council meets. Total EU, okay, I mean, there is a repeat of their information. So 144 billion euros officially was spent by the European Union. Quite an impressive number, isn't it? Quite an impressive number. If you add that US leadership claims that they spend another 300 to 350 billion, then I mean, it's totaling 500 billion, isn't it? And how anybody can say that this is not proxy war that NATO is waging against Russia or the collective West. They already spent, according to their own claims, about $500 billion to continue this war. And they are losing, by the way. They are losing. And many people in the West are beginning to realize that. Not all, but process is underway. And statement of Tucker Carlson can be seen as an indicator of that, because hardly only Tucker Carlson thinks that way. Some other people probably also do. RIA Novosti is reporting that, because Western ruling class have not yet acknowledged the reality that they lost, they are preparing further escalations against Russia, and Maria Zakharova commented on that. So let's go through this news. France and Britain are preparing an intervention in Odessa, said Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova at the briefing. She recalled that the meeting of the chiefs of the general staff of Ukraine, Britain, and France was held in Kiev on April 3rd and 4th. In essence, the discussion was about parameters of the future Franco-British intervention in the Black Sea ports of Ukraine, primarily Odessa. Zakharova added. At the same time, she noted that no decision had been made, which irritated Vladimir Zelensky. Well, no decision was made publicly. Maybe decisions were made, but these decisions still are classified, sort of, because Zakharova has a point. I mean, France and UK will most likely send their troops, significant number of their troops into Ukraine, and Russia will have no option but to take out those troops, right? Whenever they're going to be located. And that will happen. That will happen. I have no doubts about that. But one should also keep in mind that France and UK already are sending their special forces, right? And there was many reports about extermination of British SAS units, French Foreign Legion formations. Dozens of them were exterminated on a Kiev-controlled territory by Russian fighters, and more will be exterminated, right? Only death is waiting for them. That's it. So yes, Zakharova's comment is interesting, and it is good to know that Moscow is clearly taking seriously all the risks, and hopefully preparations are underway that if and when NATO member states will start openly deploying their troops, Russia will be in a position to take out those enemy forces, shortly after their deployment. After conflict will end, dear friends, I believe Ukraine will undergo full-scale disintegration, and Western Ukraine eventually will be controlled by NATO. So NATO countries will deploy their troops in the Western Ukraine. But the rest of the territory is out of question. Rest of the territory is will either join Russia, or if even maintain statehood, will be in the Russian zone of influence, completely free of NATO troops or NATO assets. That's how things are gonna go down. Let's go through some other news also, and we have this interesting report that Iran has delivered long-range surface-to-surface missiles to Iraqi militia allies. The new armaments were sent last week, with the deliveries organized by IRGC, sources told the Times. Iranian officials and media have yet to comment on the reports. On these reports, and once again, maybe these kind of reports in Western propaganda outlets is an attempt to justify potential aggression against Iran by US and other NATO member states together with Israel. So therefore, maybe this news is fake and has nothing to do with reality, although Iran clearly has a means to armed basically its allies with long-range weapon systems. But yet again, because this information is reported by Times, we should take it with a pinch of salt. And when it comes to Iran, also interesting news here that Iran-US row continues to escalate as Tehran threatens to sever ties with their nuclear watchdog. Khamenei's advisor warns that if US and Israel continue to threaten the country with a war, all IAEA inspectors will be expelled from Iran. So this is also important. Some people might even be surprised that IAEA experts are working in Iran and they're monitoring Iran's nuclear facilities. Many people actually, especially in the West, might be surprised by this, right? Because Western media outlet, all they report is mainly fake news and just false narratives that Western ruling class wants to justify their criminal actions worldwide, domestically or worldwide. RT is reporting that Trump hikes China tariff to 125%. Well, this tariff topic is still one of the major ones in this world, and of course we pay attention to it also here in Russia, public and the media. So US President Donald Trump has raised the tariffs on Chinese goods to 125% in response to retaliatory measures imposed by Beijing earlier on Wednesday. And by the way, as I mentioned in yesterday's News of the Day program, Reuters reported that some individuals in Trump's administration are articulating possibility of imposing some 500% tariffs on China. 500%. Which is crazy, by the way. They're gonna hike inflation so much so in US that they might face not ordinary inflation, but hyperinflation actually, if they will go ahead with that craziness of imposing some 500% tariffs. But already tariffs are 125%, which means that many goods, many Chinese-made goods will either disappear from the shelves in US stores or will double in price. And that's quite that's gonna cause quite inflation, isn't it? It's just inevitable at this point. Also, Trump suspended tariffs on more than 75 countries yesterday. Countries that are negotiating with US, and I showed you yesterday, I reported about the attitude that Trump has toward these countries that are negotiating with US. Trump was very vulgar and disrespectful toward these countries, and I am surprised that no country, at least I didn't see any statements from leadership of the countries that Trump insulted. I did not see any reports that those countries demanded apology or something, which is a shame, by the way. I mean, billions of people were insulted by Trump, and there no reaction, no nothing. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And also, Trump tried to explain why he's holding these tariffs, although earlier he was stating that these tariffs are forever. He said that, well, flexibility is needed, and he also pointed out that, well, some people were too panicking in US, and that's why he made the decision to hold these tariffs for 75 countries for 90 days, I believe. For 90 days. Yes, it is 90 days. And by the way, what is also interesting, media reports, some sources are reporting that curious trades were happening before Trump's announcement about halting these tariffs on 75 countries, minutes before Trump's great time to buy post. Some investors, and he also posted about it, I mean, great time to buy. Minutes before Trump's great time to buy post, some investors brought SP why 509 calls, which then surged in a whooping 2100%. So there was some speculations, by the way, some inside trading was going on, right? And some people lost big and some people gain big, right? I think at least independent media outlets on alternative media will try to find out what was going on with the stock markets and this insider trading, because yet again it's not normal, by the way. What Trump's administration is doing nowadays is really unprecedented and wild, to put it mildly, right? And I would not be surprised at all if some people from Trump's inner circle knew what was happening, knew how markets will react on Trump's statements and decisions to hold these tariffs for 90 days and stuff. And maybe they invested successfully in certain stocks, which is unfair trading, unfair practice. And I believe such a behavior is even a breach of law. Although no one gonna investigate them in US, no police, no FBI. Not now. Maybe when Trump is gone, but not now. Anyways, dear friends, EU is also freezing its tariffs against US for 90 days as a response. What else? But China, on the other hand, is ready to fight to the end. And yesterday, I reported that China increased its level of tariffs up to 104% to level it to US tariffs. But after this decision of China, Trump increased tariffs up to 125%. And I guess today or tomorrow, in upcoming days, China will increase tariffs on US goods on the very same level, or maybe even higher. If Beijing is kind of sick and tired of these games that Washington is waging, China may impose some 200% tariffs on US goods. China definitely can survive without it, because China is not really dependent on US goods that much. But US is dependent on China, right? Big time. So therefore, China definitely can go on and on with this trade war, but I don't think US can do the same. And I mean, we have report on that China has promised to fight the tariff war with the US until the victory. So there are no winners in the tariff and the trade wars. China does not want to fight, but it is not afraid of fight. We will not stand by and watch as the Chinese people are deprived of their legitimate rights and interests. Nor will we stand by and watch as international economic and trade rules and their multilateral trading system are destroyed. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Yian claimed, so yes, China is ready, by the way, to go all the way, and China definitely is in a better position in this regard when it comes to this trade war, because yet again, US imports 3 times more or 4 times more than China imports. US imports from China 3-4 times more than it is other way around. And China don't really import from US anything of strategical interest that China cannot live without. They are producing everything, right? They don't really need anything from US. But US imports quite a lot from China. From I mean, I'm not even going to go into the goods, volume of goods that US is importing, but it's everything. Literally almost everything for all segments of their economy, from retail to military industrial complex. They import quite a lot, and therefore expect some significant hike in inflation in US. And this is it for now. Relatively long update, but hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button. if you can, and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with these crazy algorithms, especially on YouTube, by the way. Last 3 my videos were crushed big time, and probably this video will be crushed also. Okay, I mean, what can I do? If members of our community that really like my work probably already remember name of my channel, and they can just search, because I have updates on regular basis, right? So if there will be no notifications, no nothing, then at least members who really enjoys my videos, they can type into search Levan Gudadze opinion, and I guess YouTube in that case will show the channel. Anyways, yes, if you can, please also share information about my channel with your friends on internet or in real life. And if you can, please consider to support my work this week. Project didn't receive even a single donation, which is unfortunate, but well, that's the way it is. So yes, if you can, please consider to support my work and this project. You can do it through several means, through PayPal platform for donation, or through Boosty platform, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page, by the way, or page on Boosty, where I have extra content, some interesting updates on regular basis. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.